Ladies and gentlemen, this is Big Ray for OneWrestling.com. I'm here at WPW, and it is my pleasure and just an honor to be sitting next to possibly one of the greatest managers in pro wrestling history, Mr. J.J. Dillon. Mr. Dillon, how are you, sir?
Fine. I'm glad you didn't say the, because if you had said the, I would have had to correct you, because to me, the greatest manager of all time is Bobby the Brain Heenan. He set the standard, I think, by which the rest of us are measured, but I have enjoyed some degree of success, of which I'm very proud of. And, you know, as I look around, just to have my name mentioned with people like Jim Cornette and Playboy Gary Hart, even Captain Lou Albano, and there's a lot of others, not to slight anybody, but I've enjoyed a great career.
I got to be honest with you. Your humility is actually, for me, it's humbling. You know, I grew up in the 80s watching the Four Horsemen. Here there's a picture of, we have Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, we have Tully Blanchard. Why don't we take a look at this here?
This is the original Four Horsemen, and to my knowledge, was the only picture ever taken. And if we had known at the time that it was going to become as big as it became and last as long as it did, that we probably would have managed to take more than this one picture. And then in the year 2012, the WWE inducted another version of the Four Horsemen, which included Barry Windham, into the WWE Hall of Fame. So
well, I got to be honest with you. This rendition of the Four Horsemen was actually my favorite rendition of the Four Horsemen.
Well, I think a lot of people would agree with you, myself included, because I think from bell to bell, the addition of Barry Windham, with everything that he could do with his youth, his size, as athleticism, I mean, from bell to bell, anything could happen, and he really complemented the group quite well. Luger, who was after Ole was the original, so he will always be special for that reason, because if that had not happened, maybe the rest never would have happened. And when Luger came in, he was relatively inexperienced, and we were established enough to the point that we were able to camouflage as he gained more experience. But we had a nice run with him. But when it got to Barry, to me, that transition for those three groups was really the glory years of the Four Horsemen.
Do you follow wrestling today?
To be honest, sparingly.
Is there anyone in the recent 20 years, let's say Barry Windham wasn't around, someone in the recent 20 years, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, any one of those guys, who could you see as a key member of the Four Horsemen? Let's take Barry Windham out.
Well, that's a good question, and I've been asked that many times, and it's kind of hard to speculate about who would have blended in terms of personality-wise, style-wise. I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin was such a huge star. I think with his ability, he definitely would have fit in, but I mean, he was such a huge star on his own. Same thing with The Rock. Huge star on his own. Of the current wrestlers, even though CM Punk is on hiatus and his status, I guess, is very much in question, big admirer of his style. Brian Daniel, big fan of his style.
Daniel Bryan,
yep. And what makes it so interesting is a lot of people look at Daniel Bryan and say, well, he doesn't seem to be getting the exposure, the push, the however you want to phrase it, that some of the others are. And some have written it off as to him not having that classical look that was so popular in the WWF/WWE. But really, it's the fans who are the ultimate judge and jury. And they're the ones who decide that if it's something that they want to watch and buy tickets to see, like I said, they're the judge and jury. And obviously, he's got a huge fan base.
Well, now, I see you have a couple of books here. Can we talk about those briefly before I let you go?
Well, this is a book. This is my autobiography, Wrestlers Are Like Seagulls, that was published in 2005. It was co-authored by Scott Teal, who owns Crowbar Press, that published it. It's a hardbound book, 360 pages, a lot of personal photos in here. Philip Varial contributed and was given a credit as a co-author as well. But you kind of see by the mosaic of some of the great wrestlers that I managed during that part of my career. But it starts from my years as a fan back in Trenton, New Jersey. And my dream was to become a wrestler, and I was a referee for about 8 years on a part-time basis when I was in college. And there was a time when I thought that's as far as my dream would carry me, but I eventually got my foot in the door as a wrestler. A lot of people think of me as the leader of the Four Horsemen, which is really just a snapshot of my career. And a lot of them don't know that for the first 5 years I wrestled full-time. And once I wrestled/managed over a 20-year period of time, I actually had over 3,200 wrestling matches against many of the who's who in professional wrestling. And after that, I was involved in the executive side of the business, because when I became a full-time wrestler, I was 28 years old, almost 29, so I wasn't a kid. And I knew that my career would not last forever. So I had a keen interest in the creative side, the television production, matchmaking, and so I worked for what was then the WWF for 7, almost 8 years, and then went to WCW. So the book really talks about the beginning of as a fan through the regional territory days, where I worked most of them, to the changes that cable television brought about the industry, to working with Vince McMahon, and then working with WCW till they went out of business, and kind of explains how the business is structured, how it operates, how it made money. And even if you're not a wrestling fan per se, it's a feel-good story about a 16-year-old kid from Trenton who fell in love with professional wrestling when he saw it on a black and white television, which I'm giving my age away, and pursued that dream. And to make it in wrestling, I always said you had to have some talent, you had to have the desire. Besides talent and desire, you needed a lot of help, and I had a lot of help from a lot of wonderful people along the way. And then that intangible factor is really luck, that no matter how talented you are, how much you want it, how much people help you, a lot of it is just the sheer luck of being in the right place at the right time. And I was fortunate enough to have that happen too, to recognize the opportunity, capitalize on it. And this kind of explains the whole body of my career. And what's encouraging to me is of the 3,000 copies that were originally printed, never in bookstores, so people had to work to find it. There's like less than 40 left at this point, and I've autographed them as my way of saying thank you for the people that have gone to the work to find it. And again, the most encouraging part is the positive feedback from people who have read it, which is the thing most gratifying to me.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, growing up in the 80s, growing up in the 90s, being a fan of the NWA, WCW, you know, I'm not saying it because you're sitting next to me. You're actually one of my favorite managers. I think you cut an amazing promo, and if it wasn't for you, and this is, again, my humble opinion, guys, OneWrestling.com, I don't know if the Four Horsemen may have taken off the way they would have. Again, this is my humble opinion, and believe it or not, the opinion of many, many wrestling fans, sir. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you here, sir.
Great compliment. And again, it was something that wasn't a creative idea that somebody had. It was a very spontaneous thing. And as I look, I said in my comments at the WWE Hall of Fame that it was a time when all the sun and the earth and all the other planets and the moons and the stars had to be in perfect alignment, because it's really something very magical happened. And Ric Flair was a world champion. Ole and Arn were world tag team champions. Tully was a national champion. And I really only managed Tully at that time. And we went out on an impromptu interview, and there was something about the look of the four of us. And Arn Anderson is the one that threw the phrase out and said, never in the history have so few wreaked so much havoc on everything else that you'd have to go to the history books and the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And the fans picked up on that, and that's where it grew from.
You know, and again, before I let you go, guys, it is the fans that make professional wrestling. I mean, the wrestlers put the work in. We enjoy watching them, but without you guys that support professional wrestling, who support your local independent wrestling, which is extremely important. I got to tell you, and I'm losing my words. I'm stuttering because I'm so excited to be sitting next to Miss.
It's even more important now to support your local independent promotions, because without the regional territories, this is where the up-and-coming stars of tomorrow are attempting to learn their craft, and it's not an easy path. But for those that make it, the rewards are tremendous. I started as a fan because I love wrestling, and to this day, I still love wrestling, and I can look at the camera in the eye and say thank you to the fans, because for your support of professional wrestling, support of me for my career, and really if it hadn't been for your support everywhere in the world, there would have been no J.J. Dillon, no Four Horsemen, and no professional wrestling.
Well, before we let you go, again, Mr. James J. Dillon, an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you for everything that you've done for the world of wrestling. And again, guys, please support your local independent wrestling promotion. We're here at WPW World Premier Wrestling, OneWrestling.com. Ladies and gentlemen, like my good friend Bill Apter says, we'll see you at the matches.